This is Delve Curiously, a moment of inquiry. This next story is about two strangers who are now connected for life. Donna Jones is a breast cancer survivor who developed leukemia after her chemotherapy treatment. 14 years ago, my father donated his stem cells in a last resort to save her life. Since the transplant, the two now share a special bond. They've kept in touch and grew closer together as they embraced each other as family. Last month, we took a trip to visit Donna in California. We had the chance to spend time with her, her family, and met more of her support system who was there during the hardest time in her life. At the end of our trip, I sat down with Donna and my father outside of her mother's house in Thousand Oaks, California, to learn more about their experience before, during, and after the transplant. Here's what they had to say.
My white blood count was up, and they were suspicious that it might be something more serious than just an infection, so they had me follow up with my oncologist because of my breast cancer history and the treatment. The radiation or chemotherapy can cause leukemia at some point. So yeah, about a week later I was diagnosed with leukemia, and locally where I lived in San Luis Obispo, and then then I had a follow-up down at City of Hope, which is where my doctor recommended that we go. I mean, we could have went to many different places, but we chose City of Hope. And I had to leave the area because there was nowhere where I lived to have a transplant. So we came down here, to where my family lives. So my City of Hope's about an hour south from here, southeast.
This trip was incredible because we had the opportunity to meet the people we saw in pictures. Her family, her mother, her wife at the time, Jenny, her siblings. I can only imagine what she had been going through and what they have been going through, right there by her side.
I had to get into remission first, locally where I lived, and then once I was in remission, they could then move forward with a transplant. So once I got in remission, they started looking, and they told me I needed to have a donor, that I needed the actual transplant, and that none of my family was a match. So then started the search for the donor. So City of Hope is great because they have one person that works with you that's all they're doing is trying to find you a donor. So you're never going through much red tape to get the information about where the process is. They'll pick up the phone any day you call to say, how's it going? How's the search going? And so there were often times where they would say, we think we have potential donors, but then those people would fall out for a number of reasons. Either they've been on the registry for years and maybe they weren't alive anymore, or they weren't well enough, or they just weren't a match, or a close enough match. They were trying to get as perfect a match just for a better outcome. And so right when they had it narrowed down to a few people, one was a female, but my doctor didn't want to choose her because she was a little tiny 100-pound thing, and they really wanted to have an abundance of white cells and be able to build up the white cells so there were more stem cells, and they wanted that. And so I didn't know, obviously, that it was Robert, but then they said, okay, we have a match that we think's probably the best match you're going to get, and they said, actually, it's a pretty darn close match. I don't think they can ever be 100%, but it was pretty close.
My father had no idea who Donna was at the time of the transplant. He made the donation because he wanted to help somebody out, regardless of the consequence. I was 15 at the time, and I remember him telling me, the amount of pain, the amount of discomfort that I'm going to feel is only temporary. It's nothing compared to what this person must be going through.
What they do is they give you chemo after you're in remission. They then give you chemotherapy again, and they basically bring you as far down as you possibly can get without killing you. Basically, it's like right there, almost at death's door, where you're pretty sick, because it's like if you wanted to plant a garden, you'd get all the weeds out before you put in your new seed to have a nice healthy garden. Well, that's kind of what they do with the chemo. And so we were just ready to start that process when I got sick with an infection, which put off that process, which put off Robert's donation and the harvesting. So I spent about a week, I think, getting better, and then right out of that I went into chemotherapy and to start the process of cleaning out my immune system, wiping it out so that we could introduce a new one. Oh, and also too, it was about a month before all that, I had a little mold in my lung, came out of nowhere, didn't know it. They just did a routine PET scan of my whole body and said, you have some mold in your lung and we need to get it out of there. And I'm like, well, what do you have to do? Well, they ended up having it like literally cut me open and take out part of my lung, put me back together, send me home, say, hurry up and get better. You're in remission still. We need to get going on this. So most people have mold in their bodies, but their immune systems take care of it. You don't even know you have it. It just routinely takes care of it, but they knew mine may not, or it would take too long. So I had to deal with that too. That was a pretty good bump in the road. My oncologist down there always joked with me and said, you know, you're the first person I've had that I was pretty sure you'd survive the transplant. It was all the other stuff that was happening that I thought was going to kill you. I was like, sorry. She's like, could you just stay home and not get in trouble? Like, sorry.
This is easy to joke about now because Donna is alive and well, and she lives a very active and healthy lifestyle. It must have been hard for her, sitting in a bed, waiting for the transplant to come.
So then the morning of the transplant was literally in the middle of the night. I knew that the donation had arrived in City of Hope. They told me. They, of course, check it out themselves. And then, and my doctor said, I'm not going to be here tonight when you're transplanted. And I'm like, well, what do you mean you're not going to be here? She said, we're just going to do it in the middle of the night. They literally just hang the 2 bags of stem cells. It's like blood. And they, put it in your IV, and like at 1 o'clock in the morning, I was being transplanted.
So I wasn't sure how that worked. I wasn't sure how that part worked.
Just like they took it out of you peripherally, that's exactly how they put it in me.
But they only had an IV going into you, but nothing else coming.
Right.
Yeah.
Just going into me.
And how long did that process last?
It took a couple hours, like about 3 or 4 hours for both bags to drip.
And at that point, once that was done, how long were you in the hospital for?
That was about 3 weeks. So they kind of, on that day, that's day 0. So that they count that as day 0, the day you're transplanted, and then there's +1, +2. So the idea is that you might be in the hospital for 100 days. That's how long they say you might be there. And you potentially, if you had complications. But if it went well, maybe be out of there in 30 days. So, but there's different markers along the way that usually by this day, this is what will show up if you're going to have a problem. And so we'd get to that day and it didn't show up, and I'm like, okay, we did that. And then day 10, okay, that didn't happen, we're good. So it seemed like all those little mile markers for us, we were just kind of, cruising right through all that stuff. And I think probably about day 7, I started to feel better. I was kind of coming out of it. And because then I started having like the bone pain.
Right.
All that.
You had those extra stem cells in your body.
Yeah, I started having all kind of the symptoms, like I had the flu. Yeah. The biggest problem I had was my throat and my mouth. I had like sores, and so I had to be on morphine for about 2 weeks. So I don't remember the 3 weeks I was in the hospital. The first 2 I don't remember. It was just a matter of pain management and just sleeping and sleeping and sleeping. And I was in isolation, and people had to wear masks. And then about day 21, I was able to leave the hospital and stay there on the campus and live on campus for another 2 months and just go back and forth and, back and forth.
I've never met anybody as strong as Donna. I'm remembering all the things she keeps around to serve as a reminder to keep her strong. A reminder of everything she's been through. One is a picture painted by a child who passed away of cancer in the same hospital where she stayed. She keeps it up. It serves as a reminder that she's still alive. And she looks at it on those particularly bad days.
Emotionally, I think because I'm a police officer, I sort of was like, just give me the task, tell me what you want me to do, and I'm just going to put my head down, and I'm just physically going to just do what I have to do, just kind of fight on, just suck it up, just do it, just tell me what you want me to do. But I had to compartmentalize things like, what's the first thing you want me to do? Okay, let's do that. Don't tell me about this yet. Just tell me this. Okay, this is done. Now what happens? So emotionally, I really didn't wrap my head around much at all. I knew I was scared, but I would never say that.
Right.
Would never tell anybody. You know, I was just very brave and just kind of like, let's do this. And it probably wasn't until a good year after my transplant that I finally lost it and was like, oh my gosh, I could have died.
So this process, how long did it take before one person is diagnosed with leukemia, and to go the process of getting a donor? Was yours quicker, normal, or longer?
I think I felt like mine was pretty quick. It seemed like a very positive experience for us because it seemed like we were always getting, there's a couple potential matches. Okay, they're not a match. Okay, we've got 2 more that we think might be good matches. Nope, they're not. So it seemed like there were always, the possibility was always there. Some people never find a match, or they don't have a very good match at all, but they're desperate and they just go for it and they pray that they survive.
Yeah.
And many times they don't have a good quality of life. They have so many complications for as long as they live, rejection issues that they live with. And I just got so lucky that my rejection issue is my eye dryness.
I didn't know anything about the bone marrow donor until maybe my 40s, because I was giving blood in my 20s for so many years. And it wasn't until maybe that time they started asking about the bone marrow donor. I said, no, I'm not interested, because I didn't know much about it. I didn't read much about it. And then they kept asking me, would you like the bone marrow on the register? I said, no, next time. Because I would always give blood, so I knew they were going to ask me. So this particular time is, this was in April or early May, and they, just got to giving blood, and that's, would you like to be blah blah blah. I said, you know what, sure, why not? Put my name in, put my name in. I'm on the registry, and lo and behold, the following month, we're not even 4 weeks.
That's what always blew my mind.
Yeah, I get a call that you're a potential match for someone with leukemia. Would you be interested in continuing with the process? I go, sure, why not? I think we're supposed to be scheduled in August. I think they had August circled for you, or as early as possible, so they wanted to make sure that I guess they had other people going through the same type of test I was going through. So at the end of July, they said you're ready to your potential match with this particular person. If you're interested, here's the date and just some more of the shot process, to start the shot process. So they zeroed a week, and I had to go through the process of getting the shots for 5 straight days, same time. The last day was going to be the day of the harvesting the stem cells, but that was pushed back. I guess that you were going through a lot. I knew you were going through a lot. I remember the infection in your lung, and I also remember infection that you got. Everything was pushed back. They briefed us on that and said, okay. So once we got the okay that you were clear, then they target a certain week and a certain day, because I needed to go, and then I needed to go through those the stem cell procedure to add more, to produce more stem cells in my body. And then I was scared, like, crap, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to me? I didn't read about it because I didn't want to know the symptoms, but I just knew it was going to be like flu type symptoms. And I guess the less I knew, the better for me. So we went through the process, and it was September, and it gave me a couple more weeks to think about it, but I said, let's go ahead and do it. And then once I was done, I didn't know anything. It's like maybe, I don't know how long it was before that I knew that everything went okay with you. And it wasn't until everything, they gave me some type of, they briefed me on your status and how you're doing in progress.
For the whole year, or just right after?
I'm not sure how. I don't really remember, but I know they did brief me every time I would go, and I would sometimes I would ask, and sometimes they would tell me. And they said the patient is doing well. They haven't seen any issues. They're fine. And then the next thing I know, a year passes, and then they gave me. I think they gave me information the day of that if you're interested in meeting or communicating with your donee, fill out this paperwork. So I said, sure. Listen. I said, sure. We filled it out, and then a year later, we were able to communicate, and the rest is history. But it is wild how things work out, because it was, to me, it was that quick, and I wasn't sure if that was the norm for someone with leukemia, and I wasn't sure how long a person with leukemia had to wait if they're in dire need of a bone marrow transplant. So
I do know that with all the genetic testing, they can tell you, hey, you have leukemia. If we get you into remission, they will say, and my doctor said your leukemia will come back. So, and probably within the year. So you can roll the dice and not do a transplant. You're in remission. You don't have cancer. But my doctor at home said it's going to come back just from the genetic testing, because I had a chromosome that was deleted and a chromosome that was transformed, and so they can actually take it down and say, and they give it like a subtype of leukemia and say, 80% of the time this leukemia always comes back. So transplant was, and my doctor at home in San Luis Obispo said, it's going to be a year of your life, and we're going to treat you to cure you. And that's all he said to me. I remember that day when he said that to me, and that hit the word cure, because when it locked in my brain, and I thought, and that's where I'm going. We're going to go and do this. And we're so much a lot alike. You, when you mentioned that about I don't want to know the other stuff. I remember going to City of Hope and saying, don't tell me my survival rate. I don't want to know, because if you tell me it's 20% survival, I will make that happen. I will screw myself and be in my head and worry that I will manifest that really low survival rate. So don't tell me. You can tell me all the things that might go wrong. I know they were obligated to do that. Tell me all that stuff, but I don't want to know, because it will mess with my head. And so I, like you, I didn't know. I mean, I knew it was going to be bad, going to be a horrible journey, but it's like, let's go. Back then, I somehow wrapped my head around that word cure, and I really expected a miracle. I wasn't very religious back then, or spiritual. That's something I knew was missing from my journey. I knew that I was spiritually bankrupt, and I couldn't lean on that when I was sick. So I leaned on just my strength, and that it's a gift I did get from that process, and from knowing him and Liz, and when we visited you and seeing that you guys were very spiritual and faith-based. I thought, you know what? There's a reason why this man's on my path. There's another reason right there. I got to see how important God was to them, and when bad things happen, you have that. So I would say expect a miracle, and you better have faith in something, and whatever it's higher power, whatever your because going through that again without that peace, if I ever got sick again, I'm grateful I now have that peace. And it takes a village. It's everybody had come forward to say, we're going to help you, and letting people help you was important, and asking people to help you, not just say, thanks, I'll let you know. It's like, no, here's how you can help me. Take my kid to practice every day. Can you run to the market for us? Yes, you can mow my lawn. And so accepting people's help. It's like, my gosh, I needed help to save my life, and a stranger came and saved it for me. So it's like I'm very open to helping folks and receiving. And I think I learned a lot about. I was always the giver, the doer, the cop, take care of everybody, the protector. And for the first time, I had to be really vulnerable and say, hey, I need help. In the most important battle of my life. So from a stranger that I didn't even know.
I didn't grasp the whole, when I was going through the process until afterwards. Liz mentioned that I broke down emotionally because I guess everything hit me. Mm-hmm. Everything hit me through exactly what I was doing, and that was deep. And it's like, it's just I'm complaining about just a week's worth of inconvenience, and here, I think I knew, because everything was come to that you were a breast cancer survivor. I think they did tell me that. And then you come down with leukemia, so everything all at once just hit me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, wow, and here I'm complaining about 5 days worth of inconvenience, and then another 2 weeks because, it's just, I just was selfish and I felt bad.
Yeah.
So
Well, you said the one lesson that Jenny and I learned for sure was living in the day and staying in the moment, and being present right here, because you don't know the phone call you're going to get in an hour, or the thing that's going to happen to you in a week, or your kids or whatever. It's like everybody's here. Be present. Be grateful. Even in the midst of the journey, it's like be present for this and be grateful. And
because life is too short. Life is, just by family gatherings we have yearly. Next year we have this. People will be missing. Whatever reason, either they pass or they can be with us. It's just be appreciative of what you have, because tomorrow may not be tomorrow minute.
Right.